Welcome to Unwiring Tech, the podcast where we explore the tangled web of technology, society, and policy. I'm Ranjana, your host, and today we are peeling back the layers on a topic that touches every household, but is often left unspoken: how digital spaces are reshaping childhood, parenting, and adolescence identity. So stay with me as I take you into the fragile minds and misunderstood influences. Many of you may have watched the recent Netflix series Adolescents, which sheds light on pressing issues within our society, most notably the growing mental health crisis among children and a disturbing rise in intolerance and aggressiveness among them. This explores the haunting truths portrayed in a series that holds up an unflinching mirror to our society's darkest corners, where bullying becomes entertainment, mental health is in free fall, and children are often influenced by social media trends than empathy. As the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. But what happens when that village is replaced by viral trends and unchecked content? Let's talk about it, because if we don't step in now, the real question won't be what our kids are watching, but what are they becoming? With smartphones and social media granting young minds access to limitless content, the world is quite literally in their palms. What began as a medium for connection has morphed into a parallel reality, one where teenagers chase validation, attention, and a sense of identity tied to metrics like likes and followers. This shift has had profound psychological consequences. Adolescents begin to equate their self-worth with digital engagement, becoming hyper-aware of their appearances, body image issues, and popularity. The gratification from online approval often replaces deeper self-understanding, as teenagers mold themselves into curated personas to just fit into the world of algorithm-driven ideals. This parallel digital existence also provides autonomy and anonymity, encouraging behaviors otherwise suppressed in real life. The emotional vulnerability of young people is being shaped in a complex ways by digital exposure. Platforms amplify distorted gender roles, foster unrealistic standards for what it means to be quote-unquote grown up. Adolescents often mimic adult behavior in pursuit of online relevance without the emotional maturity to process their action. Many influencers promote hyper-masculine, misogynistic ideals, pushing boys to suppress emotions and girls to equate self-worth with attention from opposite sex. As these patterns repeat, identity becomes externally shaped rather than internally cultivated. The boundaries between real and virtual blur further as adolescents are exposed to hyper-violent and hyper-sexualized content. Explicit material, once shielded by age restrictions, is now accessible at the click of a button. Compounding this issue is the widespread practice of underage users bypassing platform restrictions by using adult accounts, thus exposing themselves to harmful content with minimal oversight. Let's talk about an example. Molly Russell, the 14-year-old from UK who died by suicide in 2017. Inquest in 2023 found that harmful social media content contributed to teenagers' death in more than a minimal way. Molly engaged in digital self-harm, posting hateful comments about herself anonymously online, revealing a fractured inner world that lacked adequate adult intervention and consuming algorithmically amplified content that romanticized self-harm, depression, and suicidal thoughts. To surprise, social media platforms failed to deduct such content on their platform. Then, in the age of AI, let's talk about the AI chatbot. 14-year-old Seville Setzer III, who turned to Character AI, a platform where users can chat with AI versions of popular characters, therapists, or even fictional personas. For Seville, this platform became a space where he poured his thoughts, emotions, and vulnerabilities. The bot simulated emotional depth, creating what seemed like a romantic bond. They were engaged in a sexually explicit conversations to suicidal thought. To surprise, which AI bot did not raise any alarm. And these are not just outliers, these are wake-up calls. And it's not just about chatbots. In a bone-chilling report on cross-platform dynamics of self-generated child sexual abuse material by the Wall Street Journal along with Stanford University found that when someone searches for CSAM in Instagram, it gives two options. One, these results may contain images of child sexual abuse and get resources to report content. But strangely, gives second option, see results anyway. And this floods a feed of users with similar content. It revealed the extent to which Instagram's recommendation systems connects pedophiles and guides them to content sellers. Accounts found by the researcher are advertised using blatant and explicit hashtags like pedovore, preteen sex, pedobait, etc. According to the report, following just a handful of these recommendations was enough to flood a test account with content that sexualizes children. In another investigation by Stanford Internet Observatory, investigation finds AI image generation models trained on child abuse. It was found that hundreds of known images of CSAM in an open data sets used to train popular image generation models such as Stable Diffusion. Which raises another question about the data in which AI models are trained and the impact on children and adolescents. Let's talk about another report. In April 2022, Fairplay released a report titled Designing for Disorder, Instagram's Pro-Eating Disorder Bubble, which explained the platform's active promotion of harmful eating disorders or body issues content, which is further amplified by its recommendation algorithm. It has been found that these algorithms-based social media platforms are wreaking havoc on mental health and overall health of young people. Several studies prove a correlation between social media promoted self-harm content and suicides by adolescents. The most glaring area of concern with child safety and protection is the fact that children are gradually becoming more vulnerable to cybercrimes and elite threats to online security of the younger generation. The NCRB report 2022 reveals. Now let's talk about the parenting paradox, which is control without conversation. Many parents continue to depend on traditional methods of supervision, assuming that physical restrictions such as limiting outdoor time or setting curfews are enough to shield their children from harmful influences. However, in an era marked by widespread access to affordable internet and ever-evolving mobile technology, such assumptions fall short. The very notion of protection must be reimagined, particularly in digital context. But unfortunately, digital parenting remains underdeveloped, especially in developing and underdeveloped regions where digital divide exacerbates the gap in understanding. The role of parenting today requires urgent reinvention. Most parents raising children in the digital age themselves grew up without smartphones, social media, or 24/7 online access. In contrast, their children are digital natives, intuitively familiar with navigating devices, apps, social media content from a very early stage in their life. Consider a common scene on public transport. A toddler growing restless during a journey is handled a smartphone or tablet by a parent seeking momentary peace. It's a silent transaction, calm, achieved through screen exposure. Much like Pavlov's classical conditioning, where a dog associates a bell with food, today's child learns to associate distress with digital gratification. Instead of a bell, it's a cry. Instead of a food, a gadget. The result? A pattern where emotional expressions becomes a currency for digital rewards. This growing reliance on digital devices by young children is further complicated by the fact that many parents, particularly those less fluent with technology, are often unaware of what their child is consuming online. In earlier generations, parental control meant knowing a child's physical whereabouts and peer groups. For example, during my childhood, my parents' protective instincts were shaped by limiting time spent outdoors or scrutinizing the company I had. Control now extends to managing access to internet-enabled gadgets But even that does not equate to meaningful supervision in the immersive and autonomous world of online content. Many parents believe that their children are secure simply because they are physically under their roof. But the digital landscape defies such logic. Children can access the world, and the world can access them all through a handheld device. This new reality underscores the need for digital parenting, not as an act of restriction, but as an act of active guidance. It involves teaching children how to engage with the digital space critically, ethically, and safely. In cultures like India's, parenting is often rooted in hierarchical models where authority flows downwards and obedience is expected. This approach leaves little room for dialogue about the emotional and psychological experiences children undergo in their online interactions. Children are expected to be compliant and uncritical, which inadvertently stifles their ability to share vulnerabilities, fears, or even question about their digital lives. The proliferation of content promoting harmful behavior, including digital self-harm, eating disorder, viral dangerous challenges like A4 challenge, age-inappropriate content, child sexual abuse material, deepfakes, and content promoting suicidal tendencies among adolescents, further underscores the urgent need for a comprehensive research and policy interventions. Automated technologies and digital platforms both leverages and reinforces human instinct in order to trigger habits and behaviors. Variously called reward loops, captology, sticky, dual features, and extended use strategies, persuasive design strategies are deliberately baked into digital services and products in order to capture and hold users' attentions and imprint habitual behaviors. The costs of children are palpable. They include personal anxiety, social aggression, denuded relationships, sleep deprivation, and impact on education, health, and well-being. The prevalence of persuasive design in the digital environment is an issue that affects most adults and almost all children. While the digital environment offers the promise of creativity and knowledge, its current dependence on persuasive design makes it a challenging environment for children and young people that can increase risk, limit creativity, and even stifle development. The digital world isn't going away. If anything, it becomes more entrenched in the daily lives of children and teens. The question isn't whether to allow digital access, but how to equip young minds to handle it wisely. This calls for a multi-pronged response involving children, adolescents, digital platforms, parents, educators, and policymakers. For parents, it means moving beyond surveillance and into dialogue, engaging children with curiosity rather than control. For educators, it means integrating emotional literacy and digital ethics into everyday learning. And for society at large, it means recognizing that digital parenting and education are no longer optional. They are essential survival skills. If we are to raise emotionally resilient, ethically grounded, and digitally literate citizens, we must first meet them where they are, online. Only then can we help them navigate this landscape. Not as passive consumers, but as conscious participants in shaping their own digital identities. Thank you for joining me on Unwiring Tech. That's all for today's episode.